In the 1849 California gold rush, Samuel Brannan made an absolute fortune, not from looking for gold, but by cornering the picks and shovels market. He was selling picks and shovels to prospective miners who are going out to California looking for gold. And in today's AI market, we're in the middle of a modern day gold rush. Companies are spending trillions of dollars trying to develop artificial intelligence. And if you are selling the digital picks and shovels, you will make a ton of money. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 picks and shovels AI companies that are probably under the radar for you, but can make you a ton of money. And if you're new to the channel, then you probably missed my AI trade video, but I went over all the monopolies that are in the AI supply chain. I discussed the 5 layers of the AI trade: energy, infrastructure, chips, models, applications. I gave my top picks for all of those companies. And if you took my advice on one of the companies, Bloom Energy, you're probably up over 114% right now. So I might know a little bit about what I'm talking about. So none of this is financial advice, and I always recommend that you establish a strategic allocation first before you try and do any of these tactical allocations to smaller tech names. So do the boring index fund investing, do the boring bond investing, boring gold investing, develop that long-term portfolio that aligns with your risk profile. And then for a small 5 to 10% portion of that, you can try and go after one of these tactical allocations to take advantage of tech. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. A tactical allocation towards picks and shovels AI companies. So the very first name, and you're going to wish I told you about this a week ago, it's called Sterling Infrastructure. So Sterling Infrastructure was a company that actually started by building roads and highways, and then they pivoted to the construction of data centers, AI data centers. And they just announced earnings yesterday, May 4th, after hours, and they've popped over 47% off of those earnings. They have a substantial backlog of potential jobs. So they added $1.2 billion of backlog jobs in the last quarter, and they have over $5 billion of backlog construction jobs between now and the end of 2027. So some recent news with Sterling is that they acquired the CEC Facilities Group, which allowed them to do a lot more of the electrical work for these data center build-outs. So they're capturing more of the profit share when they actually do these construction jobs. And they also announced a roughly $100 million data center project award via subsidiary Plateau Excavation, explicitly citing AI and future data demand as drivers. And since Sterling is civil development and construction, their business translates very well to when this whole AI market transitions over to quantum. Because quantum computing is going to require similar construction, similar data centers, similar build out. And their business directly translates. They are set to make an absolute fortune. And they have been crushing their earnings, not by a little bit, but by a lot. And it looks like they're going to continue to do that well on into the future. So Sterling is one of my top picks for picks and shovels AI trade, because they are literally building the buildings in which the AI data centers are going into. So the next company I wanted to discuss is Lumentum. So Lumentum, they specialize in photonics and optical networking, especially that high bandwidth networking that is required to make AI data centers work. Their business has been absolutely booming across the last year, and I think they're very well positioned to continue on into the future. These AI data centers require a ton of networking bandwidth to pass the information back and forth for all the inference jobs, all the training jobs. And once the market pivots from AI to quantum, you're going to be moving even more data using a quantum computer than you are using these GPUs and physical CPU computers. So their business is going to see sustained demand well past 2030 and well into the quantum computing revolution that is right on the heels of this AI revolution. Some major news for them. They announced a $2 billion strategic investment with NVIDIA. But that NVIDIA partnership is key because as NVIDIA builds out these whole rack solutions, if Lumentum can be a key supplier, then their business is going to boom. Right now, they don't have some sort of exclusivity agreement with NVIDIA. NVIDIA has been using a few different contractors for their optics, but being one of those preferred contractors is a big deal considering the scale of NVIDIA's business. They do have a few competitors, so Broadcom, Marvel, Sienna, and there's some aggressive Chinese vendors that are trying to break into the AI optics networking market. But right now, Lumentum is very strongly positioned to capture a large share of some of that AI capex spending. Which brings us to our next name, Broadcom. So Broadcom quietly became one of the largest companies in the world, seemingly overnight. Right now, which is May 5th, 2026, they are the 7th largest company on the S&P 500. And their core business is building out these ASICs, so application-specific integrated circuits, to do AI inference. So Google has these TPUs, what are specially built to do AI inference loads. But those TPUs have to be constructed by someone, and that someone is Broadcom. So you really only have two options when it comes to building out a chip. You either are going to use NVIDIA's GPUs, and they have almost 90+% of the market share, or you're going to build out an application-specific circuit to do inference jobs, to do training jobs. And your only option for that is Broadcom. And Broadcom has actually signed multi-year deals with OpenAI to supply custom AI ASICs. They signed deals with Google, obviously, for their TPUs. They're on their 8th generation of TPUs right now. They have large orders from Meta, Anthropic. These ASICs are what's going to take the cost of a token down towards zero. The cost of token generation has been plummeting, and using application-specific integrated circuits is the way to further lower that cost. And companies aren't choosing either or. They're not just going NVIDIA GPUs or ASICs. They're integrating both to work through different workloads. And that kind of blended model means that if you bought NVIDIA and you bought Broadcom, you've kind of cornered the entire chips market, and all of the frontier models are going to be using either Broadcom or NVIDIA to get their chips. And beyond just the ASICs, they actually do some of the networking solutions, so the Ethernet and connectivity. And they actually have a software suite similar to CUDA, which NVIDIA has. They call it VMware. And all these things build a pretty sustainable moat for Broadcom. And once the market pivots from just AI to quantum, Broadcom is very well positioned to become a primary quantum infrastructure provider. It won't be too difficult for them to transition over from building AI circuits to quantum circuits. They did establish a multi-year quantum science partnership with Caltech, and they are funding a Broadcom quantum laboratory to work on quantum computing, sensing, and measurement. And then they're launching a quantum safe fiber channel and storage networking products. They're trying to embed post-quantum cryptography. So Broadcom is actively thinking about what is their pivot after this AI boom ends, and how do we sustain this growth well into the future. So they are very well positioned to continue to make money well past 2030. They're already the 7th largest company in the world. And if you think about market cap, it's kind of the collective intelligence of the market. Everyone is voting with their dollars to say what company is the most valuable. And they've said Broadcom is a very valuable company. So this is another one of those companies that I can see holding for the long term and will actually probably make you a ton of money. So the next name is a name that you've probably heard about for a long time, but they're experiencing a bit of a renaissance. Sandisk. So Sandisk is a memory provider. So a lot of the AI inference jobs require a lot of memory to actually execute. There's a lot of memory required in training, a lot of memory required in running these models, and Sandisk is one of those providers. SK Hynix is the company that has an essential monopoly on high bandwidth memory, and memory is so constrained that these AI frontier labs are going wherever they can find memory at all. And one of those providers is Sandisk. So they have seen an explosion in demand for their product. And you can see that in the last year of price moves on the stock market. They have some competitors, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron, which together, all those companies dominate the overall global memory market. But right now, AI drives about 90% of the revenue for Sandisk. And as far as the transition from AI to quantum is probably going to require just as much memory as AI workloads require. So they're probably going to be well positioned into the future, but they are not the primary memory provider. SK Hynix is actually the premier high bandwidth memory provider in the world, but they are so constrained in the amount of high bandwidth memory that they can provide that the demand is spilling over into other memory providers like Samsung and Sandisk. And then the last company I wanted to talk about is Vertiv. So Vertiv provides cooling solutions for AI data centers. They're making sure that these AI data centers don't overheat, and the heat that these data centers are generating is dissipated correctly. And they are getting a ton of work from all the AI data center build out. And I'd imagine their cooling solutions will transition over well to quantum computing and beyond. So they're very narrow in the scope of their business. They're just doing cooling solutions, but sometimes you just need to do one thing really well, and that is Vertiv. So if of all the names that I've listed today, they're my least certain bet to continue on into the quantum age. There's been some advancements where cooling is becoming less necessary on some of these GPUs and ASICs that are being built. The Vera Rubin suite can actually be cooled with water, which is lukewarm. So you don't really need robust cooling solutions when the chips can be cooled with lukewarm water. And if those innovations in cooling continue, or if we actually start to move our AI data center stuff into space, Vertiv could be left out of the loop. And that's a risk with this business, because there's a good chance that quantum and AI transitions from just being earthbound demand to being in outer space. And if that's the case, they're not going to be providing cooling solutions for those products. You'll still need memory, you'll still need construction to build out some of the manufacturing of memory and data center stuff. So all these other names on this list, they will still be in business, but Vertiv could end up on the short end of the stick. So there is competitive pressure for alternate cooling solutions, but Vertiv does have a substantial backlog, so they could see some sustained growth through 2030, but they're my least certain picks and shovel bet. So that was a bunch of names, there's a bunch of different ideas. What are the key takeaways from this? So Sterling Construction is my number one picks and shovel name that I am investing heavily in. They are doing physical construction. They have a business which is diversified out beyond just AI infrastructure, and the demand that they're experiencing is not going to go away. We're going to see a sustained AI data center build out across the United States for the next decade at least, and you'll see even more data centers coming online once quantum becomes more prevalent. So Sterling Construction, they have so many different revenue sources, they have so much cash on their books, and they have a multi-billion-dollar backlog. They are my highest conviction bet for picks and shovels AI companies, and I just invested in them a few days ago, right before their earnings, and I've already seen an over 40% return. The next highest conviction bet for me is Broadcom. Broadcom is the second provider right behind NVIDIA to build out these AI chips. If you are not using NVIDIA's GPUs, then you want an application-specific circuit, and you're going to go to Broadcom. It's really an either or. You either have an ASIC or a GPU, and there's only really two companies you can turn to, NVIDIA or Broadcom. So I would have very high conviction that Broadcom's business is going to grow into the future. They're positioning themselves for quantum, and the market is already voting with their dollars, and Broadcom has become the 7th largest company in the world. And then right below that, I would have Lumentum, and it's mostly because of their partnership with NVIDIA, and because networking and photonics are not going away, you're going to need to communicate that those huge streams of data, regardless if it's AI, it's quantum, or even just regular server racks in a regular data center. You need networking solutions. And they're positioning themselves as a key supplier of optical networking. And then behind that, I would have Sandisk and Vertiv. So Sandisk is getting the overflow from SK Hynix. So I have lower conviction in Sandisk. You can hop in, but I would not hold them past 2030. I would imagine that SK Hynix builds out their supply, and that will erode some of Sandisk's business. And Vertiv, like I said, they are a very narrow business. They're very focused on cooling solutions, and that may not translate as alternative cooling solutions come online and as AI data centers transition to space. And with all of this, none of this is financial advice. Make sure you do the simple, boring things first. Don't YOLO into any of these companies. What I am talking about is a 5 to 10% allocation within your overall portfolio plan. Keep to your strategic allocation, and then you can do a small 5 to 10% allocation to try and take advantage of some AI names. And if today's video gave you some ideas on how you can take advantage of the picks and shovels of this AI gold rush, like the video, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be trying to make you 1% better every day. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time.
The candle's flickering, we're reading through the charts. Financial literacy, we mastered all the arts. From the bull to the bear, yeah, we're staying prepared. Giving you the knowledge that the others never shared. Understand the market, keep your vision on the prize. Building up the wealth right in front of your eyes. Talk Higgins, yeah, we keep it moving.